And with that, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. I'm going to hand things over to our product manager, Buck Chell.
Thank you, Kelly. Does my sound okay?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Buck Chell, product manager for Citrix at the New Horizons corporate office. And over the last 2 years, Citrix has made modernizing and simplifying their courses and certifications a priority. Today's webinar will help you understand Citrix education and certification program, including their new cloud certifications. And today's webinar, Understanding How to Get a Citrix Certification This Year, will be led by Khalaf Pidad, who has been a technical instructor since 1992, and who is also a Master Citrix Certified Instructor. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Khalaf.
Thanks, Buck. Thanks, Kelly. Good morning or afternoon, as the case may be. My name is Khalaf Haddad, and I will be guiding you through this bit of the conversation here. Talk a little bit about what Citrix is, why Citrix certification, which is the primary focus. Then I'll go over some of the certification paths, resources that are available to you, and anytime at the end we will take any questions. So as many of you are familiar with, Citrix is a software company that was founded back in 1989, specializing in remote application access and virtualized infrastructure. Flagship products, ZenApp and XenDesktop, can be found in numerous companies, and last check, over 300,000 companies run some kind of a Citrix product. So the Citrix reach is vast, and Citrix skill is always in demand. And in fact, in my time being affiliated with Citrix Education, I've come to discover that in some rather remarkable ways, and I'll touch on a few of those going forward. But suffice to say, the short version is that there is a pretty big demand for Citrix skill out there, and that's something that I've seen. So the question, why Citrix certification? Well, to quote a presidential candidate at one point, it's the economy. Clearly, when you're looking for what to do with your time, you want to maximize the return on investment. And according to the last few salary surveys that I've gone through, Citrix certifications rank among the highest paying certifications in the industry. Now, that's not to say that achieving a Citrix certification entitles you to that, but it's saying that on average, certified professionals who participate in these salary surveys, the data that they provide indicates that there is a significant return on investment, and 6 figures is what it's been running. And this particular number I've got up here was based on the virtualization certification. There are 3 main areas of certification in the Citrix product family. Virtualization is perhaps the largest, most commonly referenced. The other ones are a little bit more specialty. They're networking and mobility certs, and it's because they are a little bit more specialty, you can also think supply demand. That the demand is still there, but the supply is much sharper. And so that's what I point out there, that the NetScaler and ZenMobile professionals can be paid even better. In fact, I came across another factoid that actually bears that out. But a third reason is my LinkedIn profile. Every week I get a report on the fact that my profile appeared in so many searches this week, and it tells me what the keywords are, and invariably the word Citrix and NetScaler pop up. A third keyword, unemployed. I was like, no, I am employed, thank you very much, and happily so. But I thought it was kind of odd. But Citrix and NetScaler keep popping up in the search terms that bring my profile up. So I know if people are looking at my profile, they'll be looking at anybody that has good Citrix skills. And so I want to talk a little bit about the different certification paths. Now, as Buck mentioned, Citrix has spent the last year or two revamping their entire approach to education to more closely align the educational offerings with the exam offerings. In the past, those two operated a little bit separately. So you would take a class and then you would go to the exam and find out that you had to read an additional 40% worth of material before you were even ready to take the exam. That is no longer the case. The material that is on the certification exam is covered in the 5-day course that you would attend, along with some other resources that I'll highlight to you. But another thing that they've done is also they've clearly defined a progression, so that if you're trying to map out what your Citrix career might look like, you would begin by gunning for a Citrix Certified Associate, the entry-level certification that indicates that you understand how the product works, how to manage it, and be able to maintain it on a day-to-day basis. From there, the next level in the progression or the stacking would be the Citrix Certified Professional, sort of a mid-level that goes a little bit beyond just day-to-day maintenance. Now you're thinking through the implementation phases and how you might integrate some additional features of the product. And that's generally where Citrix professionals end up. They end up at that Citrix Certified Professional level. But then there are a few who are called on to be involved in the design, people like consultants or architects. And for them, a demonstration of skill can be found at the expert level, the Citrix Certified Expert. More of a designer, and the certification exams and the courses around that are more design oriented than they are hands-on. If I were to go through these, I'd say at the associate level, you'd be learning how to operate the tools. At the professional level, you would be installing and configuring the environment. And at the expert level, you would be designing. So you can see how, as the certs stack, by the time you get to the expert level, you're really at that point where you're kicking off the Citrix project, then maybe handing off the project plan to a professional who implements it, who then turns around and incorporates associates into maintaining the environment. So with this stacking model, Citrix has put together certifications in their 3 main product areas, that being virtualization, networking, and mobility. Now, with the mobility cert, you see that there is only one level, and that is the professional level exam. The other 2, the virtualization and networking areas, do have 3, although the expert level networking exam will not be released for another few weeks. I think May 7th, I believe, is the release date on that. So sometime mid-May, that will be released. The course has already been released, but the exam will be coming out in about a month. Now, in addition to these traditional certifications, which those of you who have been in the industry for a while are familiar with, the notion of studying for an exam and then registering for the exam at Pearson VUE, and then driving in, sitting in a testing booth and taking and passing the exam. Pardon me. Citrix is also trying to cover some of their additional areas, as Buck mentioned, the cloud networking, as Citrix has announced 2018 to be the year of the cloud, if I were to put words in their mouth. But with this emphasis on Citrix cloud solutions, Citrix has felt compelled to provide some sort of a cloud certification to validate a person, or to validate a person's experience and knowledge with the product. Now, these other certifications around cloud, around NetScaler, SD-WAN, and ShareFile are a little bit non-traditional in the sense that you're not going to end up in a testing booth, but rather, after completing the course, either through an instructor-led experience or an e-learning experience, there is an online assessment that you would complete. In fact, it's part of your e-learning component that you would complete the online assessment and pass at 80% for each module. And then when you complete all the modules, you would be awarded that certification. So Citrix is doing something a little bit new with these, which are a little bit more specialty focused, as opposed to their main product lines of the ZenApp, ZenDesktop, NetScaler, and ZenMobile products. So we'll talk a little bit about each of those here in just a moment. But circling back, before I do that, let me see if I can do this. There we go. And what you should be seeing right now is the website training.citrix.com. If you navigate to training.citrix.com, you will find that there is a certification tab that you can click on, And this will give you information about all the certifications. So there's a mention here about the new Citrix Cloud certifications, as you see there, and the certifications are tied to course attendance plus completion of the assessment. Although there, and we'll come back to this, but yeah, so there's also a research program, but you can get additional information here at training.citrix.com. That's not the one. There we go. Alrighty. All right. Continuing on then. We'll come back to that page in a bit. With regard to the virtualization, this is around the ZenApp and ZenDesktop product line. Those of you that have been working with Citrix technologies most likely have encountered ZenApp, ZenDesktop at some point. And if you've been working with version 7, you know that ZenApp and ZenDesktop are pretty much the same product. Well, the entry-level certification is the exam 1YO203, which the best way to prepare would be to attend course CXD 210, the ZenApp and ZenDesktop administration course. In that class, we cover the administration basics, a simple preparation of the environment, a quick installation, looking at provisioning resources, providing access to the resources, managing the applications, the policies, printing, profile management, security, high availability, and troubleshooting. So a number of topics that are covered there. At the professional level, the 311 exam, its topics are covered by the CXD 310 course, which will discuss things such as advanced storefront configuration, workspace environment management, app layering. For those of you that have been eyeballing Unidesk for a while and saying, I wish I could buy it, and now Citrix did for you. Always a fun thing. And as well as provisioning services. So there's a lot of good material in there. One cool thing I do like to point out is that even though the word advanced appears here at the professional level, it really isn't advanced from a difficulty perspective. It's simply additional. But I think it would be a little awkward to call it additional administration, so they've opted for the word advanced administration there. So that's what I like to tell folks, is that it's more of a continuation of the first class, if you will, or the first set of information. But both of these would then give you a broader view to take into the expert level, where we sit down and perform some assessments, look over some case studies, and think about some advanced configurations. And the CXD 410 class has just been revamped, I think re-released about 3 months ago, to incorporate more than just pen and paper exercises. The initial release of this course was almost exclusively design focused. Now it's design focused with an opportunity to validate the design choices through implementation and working in the lab. So that's the progression there on the virtualization. Now, another thing I should point out is that with these 5-day courses, Citrix does include a testing voucher. So there's the expectation that you would, at the conclusion of the week, think about and schedule your exam. Not for the last day of class, mind you. It would still be a few weeks before I would recommend taking the exam, but that you would take the exam. I was kind of surprised to find out that only 10% of my students are redeeming that test. I'm thinking to myself, if you have an opportunity to take the exam and burnish your credentials and improve your resume, why not? And I suppose it's just one of those, time got away from me, wasn't thinking about it. And so I like to really bring that front and center, particularly in light of what we talked about at the top there, is that on average, Citrix professionals who respond to salary surveys are giving us six-figure income as they're reporting them. So I don't know why people would want to miss that opportunity. But as you look at that, you might notice here on my slide that that there's two issues going on. One is that it says ZenApp and ZenDesktop, and if you've been around for a while, you know that these have two separate focuses. Another thing you're going to notice there is that the version is 7.15, and so I'd like to pause and address that. Is if you're not worried, even though the course number is CXD, which indicates ZenDesktop, does this apply to ZenApp? And then if so, which version? And I want to reiterate, for those of you that aren't aware of this, ZenApp and ZenDesktop are the identical software. There is no difference here in version 7 between the two. All that differs is your licensing. So if you purchase the ZenApp license, some of the ZenDesktop only features would not be available to you. But ZenApp is really a subset now of ZenDesktop. So when we teach the course, and when you're looking for that certification, you will be covering both. And in fact, you can't operate ZenApp any differently than you operate ZenDesktop. So there really is no difference between ZenApp and ZenDesktop from a technical perspective and from an educational perspective. Now, the second issue is, okay, but what version? Maybe you're at a company that 3 years ago implemented and stabilized on ZenApp or ZenDesktop version 7.6. And now you're seeing that the course is based on 7.15 LTSR, or long-term service release. You might even notice that the current release is 7.17. So that indicates, that the slide is a little bit dated, but that's okay. The courses and the certifications themselves are good for all versions of ZenApp ZenDesktop 7. Now, that doesn't account for the new features and the enhancements that are made over time, but the core of the product remains. And so that should be some encouragement to you, particularly if you feel like you're on an older version of ZenApp ZenDesktop. Would pursuing certification still be worth it? Oh, absolutely. Someone once famously said, there is no knowledge that is not power. And so that's a big encouragement there. Alrighty. So that's the virtualization stack. Do we have any questions at this point in time?
No, I think we're good to go.
All right, thanks, Kelly. All right, next up is to take a look at the networking stack. Now, the networking stack centers around, or the networking certifications are focused on the Citrix NetScaler product. The NetScaler product is, I think, my favorite piece of technology to play with at this point in time. If you asked me 10 years ago, my answer would have been SharePoint. Today, my answer is NetScaler. This thing is absolutely amazing, a whole lot of fun. I really enjoy playing with it. So if you're in a NetScaler class of mine, we have a rip-roaring good time. And in fact, so much so that I don't even have to drink coffee that week to be as energetic as I am. So that being said, when we look to the entry level, Citrix has done something kind of interesting here with their associate level certification. That there are two options depending on what your primary use of the NetScaler is. If your primary use of the NetScaler is to serve as a VPN gateway for external users to have secure access to your ZenApp ZenDesktop resources, then the first option makes sense in that the course and the exam cover the essentials of the NetScaler and the unified gateway. And in the unified gateway, we would look at creating a single point of entry for access to not only ZenApp and ZenDesktop resources, but other clientless apps such as Exchange Outlook web app, SharePoint, also other internal websites, intranet sites, SaaS applications, etc. The second option is for those who are focused on using the NetScaler primarily as an application delivery controller. So there will be an interest toward things such as content switching, responder policies, global server load balancing, and the like. And so for that is the second option there, the second course listed there. Now you might notice the repetition in the two titles, NetScaler 12 Essentials. The way that these two courses are structured is that the first 3 days of each course is identical, and the last 2 days are different, which then asks, well, leads to the question, well, what if I want to additionally take those other 2 days? And the answer is we do offer those additional 2 days as separate standalone classes as well. So that over the course of 7 days, you would cover all of the material presented by these two and covered by both exams. Now, either one of these exams will net you the CCAN designation or certification, and both are a good stepping stone toward the professional level exam, where the advanced topics, and again, don't let the word advanced intimidate, it's really more additional topics. So what we couldn't talk about in the first 5 days, we'll have to have another 5 days to get into things such as the application firewall, look at the NetScaler web logging feature, the NetScaler management and analytics service, front-end optimization, caching, compression, and the like. And so those are some pretty cool topics. And as we dig into those, there's the corresponding exam and 5-day course. That is a pretty fun class. Like I said, I have a lot of fun with the NetScaler courses, and I really, really enjoy those. Finally, at the expert level, this new course that has just been released, Architecting a Citrix Networking Solution. Again, this wouldn't be necessarily the day-to-day administrators like you would have at the associate professional level, but someone who's earned the expert level designation here in networking would be viewed more as a designer and architect. And so people such as Citrix solutions providers or Citrix partners that have to have at least one of these people on staff in order to validate design plans, this would be the place for them to be. The exam, this particular exam, will come online May 16th, which is why you won't find any information on the website about it yet. But the course has been released and will be appearing on our schedule here at some point. All right. Do we have any questions at this point regarding some of the networking options?
No questions right now.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. The third area here with regard to Citrix products is the mobility. And there's only one exam that corresponds with Zen Mobile. And this is going to be an interesting one in particular. Now, the virtualization and networking ones, as we demonstrated, are 3-tiered stacking certifications. Mobility, a little bit different. One professional level exam has been released here. And the interesting thing about Zen Mobile, the product, is that it is constantly being updated. And the primary drivers behind constantly updating Zen Mobile are, of course, Android and iOS, as they are constantly updating. So it's sort of the cat and mouse game. As iOS and Android continue to update, Zen Mobile has to keep chasing. And so with version 10 of Zen Mobile, I think the product updates quarterly. The course does not. So the course might be a couple of versions behind, but again, nothing major in terms of the difference between what you have in the course, what you have on the exam, and what you're going to see in the current release of the product. Yeah, so as far as the core understanding that you would need to bring to mobility for this level of certification, it's fairly straightforward. Now, I'm going to do something really, really odd, and I wasn't planning on doing it this way, but I want to see if I can get any kind of reaction from the audience right now. What if I were to tell you that you could download the answer to every question on these certification exams from Citrix's own website? Would I have any interest in that whatsoever?
It is a quiet group today.
Okay, fair enough. Well, because I'm a nice guy, I'll show you anyway. Let's see here. Let me click. There we go. So what I'm talking about is when you go to training.citrix.com. By the way, speaking of the certification exams, I do need to make something clear. It's not a secret that brain dumps exist on the internet, but they are wholly unnecessary. As you come to the training.citrix.com website and click on certification, we'll start here with app and desktop virtualization. And when you click on to see the virtualization certification requirements, all right, it tells you for these stacking certifications, associate level, professional level, and expert level, what the requirements for each would happen to be. All right. So taking into account this first one here, the associate level certification, it says here that the first step would be to review the 203 exam prep guide. And I'll click on the exam prep guide, and this will call up another page, which when I click on prep guide, so from overview to prep guide, it gives me this resource that when I click, opens a PDF. And this is what I claim contains the answers to every question on the exam, and here's how. Right. Before taking any Citrix exam, you want to download this exam prep guide. This is the only PDF you'll need to download from the internet. And that you're downloading it from Citrix's website shows you something. It shows you that Citrix wants you to be certified. Like I said, they've included a voucher for the exam with every 5-day class that you take that lines up with a cert, okay? So the 5-day courses that line up with a cert, you get a voucher. They want you to be certified because they want competent advocates for their product. Keep that in mind. Citrix wants competent advocates for their product. So to that end, Citrix has structured these certification exams not to be too easy or too hard, all right? After 25 plus years of taking certification exams, I've seen the whole range of them. I've seen ones where I didn't study and I walked in and I passed it with almost perfect score, and it was a total waste of my time. I've gone and taken other exams that were ridiculously impossible because they would ask questions like, on page 46, paragraph 4, line 3, what is the 5th word after the end of the square brackets? Those kind of questions are not helpful in the real world. The Citrix exams are what I call firm but fair. They are tough. You got to know what the product, you got to know how the product works and how to apply and use the product and how to manage it. But they are fair exams in that they are not asking you the most unreasonable, impossible, esoteric trivia associated with some branch of the product. All right, so they're firm but fair. And to that end, they give us these exam prep guides. So keep all that in mind as we look through and say, for this particular exam, they tell you 64 questions, multiple choice. Now, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer, multiple choice. All you got to do is read the question. You know the right answer is on the page. After you read the question, a couple answers will stick out. When you reread the question, you'll find that little detail that will tell you which one's good and which one's a better answer. And you can choose the better answer and move on. When you read the passing score, you'll see for this particular exam, the passing score for this exam is 70%. You'll see other exams where they say the passing score is 61%. You might find one that says the passing score is 75%. What you come to realize is that the passing score they're identifying here is only a statistical line that they drew in the sand. It doesn't say anything about whether the exam is easy or hard, okay? It's a statistical analysis at that point. So it tells you how many minutes this particular exam, 90 minutes, 64 questions, about a minute and a half a question, that's fine. This exam prep guide also tells you the recommended knowledge and skills, the kinds of things that they expect you to know going in. They expect you to have certain product experience and tell you that the recommended training is this particular course right here. So in this case, they recommend the CXD 210 class. All right, as we continue on, they mention the unauthorized prep materials. If somehow Citrix figures out that you did download one of those other PDFs and you're caught, they reserve the right to decertify you. So I like to point that out and let you know that you don't need any other PDF than this one, because as you continue through, they list out the objectives and they're going to tell you exactly what kinds of questions they're going to ask. Not only are they going to tell you exactly what kind of questions they're going to ask, they're going to tell you exactly where they're going to ask the questions from, and if you need to, here are the references that tell you where to go prepare for these kind of questions. So I looked at this and I said, all right. They want me to, in this case, objective 1.01, they want me to identify the layers in the layered architecture approach to ZenApp and ZenDesktop. So they want me to be able to identify the layered, the architectural overview by layers. Well, in the case of Citrix, or in ZenApp, ZenDesktop, we're talking about the user layer, the access layer, the control layer, the resource layer, and the compute layer. Well, knowing those 5 layers, I can identify the Citrix components in each. In the user layer, we have Citrix Receiver. In the access layer, that would be Storefront and NetScaler. In the control layer, we're talking about the delivery controller, the domain controller, the license server. And in the resource layer, we're talking about the VDA machines. And the compute layer represents either the hypervisor or the public cloud subscription, i.e. Azure or AWS. So I've got that down cold in large part because I've taught this class a dozen times. But aside from that, had I read module 1 of the course and reviewed that particular CTX article, that information would be reinforced for me. So I continue as I read through again module 1 and that particular one to understand the different FlexCast models, the different ways in which I would provide resources. As I continue through, I have not only a checklist here of what I want to prepare, but I also have a checklist of what to read. And so as I ask myself, am I comfortable with the objective? I also ask, did I read those the reference materials? All right, because these reference materials, it's safe to say, were not placed here randomly. I will just leave it at that. All right, and so for each objective domain, in each subsection within each objective domain, it's giving us a little description as to what they're interested in your knowing, kinds of questions that they would be asking about, and then the reference materials that provide the source for the questions that they would ask. All right, and these PDFs are available for every exam. So it's not just the 203 exam, but if I were to go to the networking certification, I would find that there is an exam prep guide for this one as well. So for example, scroll down here to the 340 exam and open the exam prep guide and yet another exam prep guide. And there we are. So that's been published. And this particular one, okay, the passing score on this one, again, 62%. Neither here nor there, it's just a different statistical analysis performed on it. But as I move through, there's the breakdown on the sections, the interpretation of the objectives, and there we go again. The objective and the reference materials. All right. So by all means, take full advantage of these resources that Citrix is giving you. The only explanation I have is that they want certified professionals. All right. Any questions, comments, thoughts at this point?
Nope, I think we're good to keep going.
All righty, thank you. All right, so with that, we'll take a look at some of the other certifications. Now, those were the traditional certifications where you would line up in the testing booth and take the exam. But Citrix is also providing online assessments for some of these other products. So for the Citrix Cloud, there is the Citrix Certified ZenApp Desktop, CC for Citrix Cloud, and another one there for Microsoft Azure. And with the cloud certifications, there is a requirement for course attendance. Right now, since the online assessment is not yet available, course attendance is all you need for this particular certification. And again, with 2018 being the year of the cloud, Citrix is making a very strong push to their customers and making a very strong case for moving to the ZenApp ZenDesktop service in Citrix Cloud. So that's something that is going to be a growing area available. We also have the NetScaler SD-WAN, and as somebody once lovingly put it, the only similarity between the NetScaler and the NetScaler SD-WAN is the word NetScaler. The NetScaler SD-WAN is a different product altogether. Its heritage goes back to what was known as branch repeater and then cloud bridge. And its purpose is as a WAN accelerator and optimizer. All right, so it's a little bit different than a NetScaler, which is an application delivery controller, VPN gateway type of an appliance. The 2-day workshop is a great way to get a lot of hands-on experience with the NetScaler, and the way that the labs are structured, the online assessment is built into the module. So at the conclusion of each module, after you've gone through a series of exercises, you can complete the online assessment tool. And at the end of 2 days, after successfully passing each section of the online assessment, you would be awarded that NetScaler SD-WAN cert. Now, the online assessment ones, and there's also one for Citrix ShareFile as well. To be clear, these are a little bit newer, and they're going to be handled a little bit differently than the traditional sign up, go to the testing booth, thank you, Pearson view. But what I will tell you is that anytime you incorporate any of these certifications, whether they be the traditional ones or the ones that I have up on the screen right now, placing them in your LinkedIn profile, placing them in your resume will increase your visibility and your perceived value in the market. So if as people say, all right, we want to think about implementing NetScaler SD-WAN, let's go find some NetScaler SD-WAN talent out there, boom, you become visible. How about Citrix Cloud? Anybody out there with Citrix Cloud experience? Even though Citrix Cloud has been around for a couple of years, still not as a talent pool quite as developed behind it. You get up there and you get going. Remember also, though, what I said about the traditional certifications, which was that that with the, if I were to go back to this chart here and look at the tools at the top there, or the certs at the top, there are 5-day courses that correspond to each one of those 7 certifications in the top half of this table, or in the top table there. And only 10% of my students actually redeem the voucher. So by taking that exam and passing it, you placed yourself in a less than 10% pool of all Citrix professionals. And in a competitive marketplace, any way that you can distinguish yourself or set yourself apart that way is in your best interest. So as far as what I would suggest as next steps going forward, I would encourage you to go visit the training and certification website at training.citrix.com and make sure that you download those exam prep guides. Like I said, Citrix wants competent advocates in the field. Be one of those competent advocates. I'd also suggest you register for a class. Come check out our website for the most current Citrix course schedule. We've got courses scheduled out through December now for the virtualization, the networking, and the mobility products. So if you've got a couple of days and you want to bone up on your NetScaler SD-WAN skills, swing on by. If you want to get started with ZenApp and ZenDesktop with that CXD 210 class and work your way up the stack, 210, 310, by all means, you're more than welcome to do that as well. One of the cool things I like to say is that our Citrix certified instructors have a minimum of 21 years of experience teaching IT certification courses. So my colleague and I, get Alan Finley in a class. He's a great guy. He's taught a lot of stuff for us over the years. He's worked with Citrix for several years and just an all-around good guy. So you definitely are going to have a great experience there. But again, and I want to overemphasize and reemphasize this. Don't just be content taking the class. Take the certification exam. Distinguish yourself. Be in that upper echelon there, the 10%, the 8%, 5% who actually take these exams and can post those badges out on LinkedIn and Acclaim and everywhere else that they're going to be. So, well, with that, I want to say that if you have any questions, any additional questions, be more than happy to entertain those now.
Thank you so much, Halaf, and thank you everyone for joining us today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to type those in the questions menu box now, and we'll address those over audio. We do have some time, so feel free to type those in now. Halaf gave you guys a lot of great links to go to get more information. You can also visit our website, newhorizons.com, and it will direct you to any of those as well. So I will send you guys all this PowerPoint presentation in addition to a link to view the session recording, to go back and listen to anything you may have missed or pass on to any colleagues who were unable to join us. Also want to let you guys know that we have a full schedule of upcoming webinars. So if you visit our website at newhorizons.com, click on the webinars link and you'll see a full schedule of all of our upcoming sessions through July, I believe. So these are free for you guys to attend. So I highly recommend you attend them and just gain more insight and tips and tricks on different things that we have to offer. It looks like we don't have any questions, Halaf, so I think we can go ahead and end today's session. Thank you again for presenting on behalf of New Horizons. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for having me, Kel. I appreciate it. Thank you for your hosting.
All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. That will conclude today's session. You may now log off. Have a great day.